juxtapose a male and a female, and a female is ambitious just as the male is ambitious and is seeking opportunities to do some great work, showcase the work she can do, advance in her career, just like the male. But it will come across as different because whereas for the male, people will say, oh, well, kudos, go get her, upwardly mobile. For the woman, it's like, so who's taking care of your children? Yeah. So who is taking care of your husband? Who's taking care of your home? That's a reality we cannot run away from.
Yeah.
And so that in itself is something that we as women who are career professionals should realize is one barrier. The barrier of limiting ourselves and limiting the scope of our thoughts. Because you're supposed to be a woman, you shouldn't think past a certain degree. You should just be happy to do your 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Take your paycheck and go home. That's enough. You're already in that space. You should be grateful. But as economists and development specialists will say to you, there is actual research evidence that shows that when women are not allowed to thrive and grow, there's a shortfall in the outcomes, in the success, both economically and developmentally, that can arise because what you've done is remove half of the eligible working population. That is something that we also cannot run away from.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's nothing that says that because someone is a woman, she cannot think in dynamic and ambitious ways for an organization. It's just basically about your mindset, your forward-thinking mindset, whether you're male or female.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say to anyone who's like, but there's no problem. Women, you can't say, even for myself, I do have to encounter and engage with people who are like, but you're a wife, you're a mother. That's, all these other things you're doing, they're not necessary.
Yeah.
And then reading this book by Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala and Gillard, the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, I think. They cited some research that had been done where people were blinded. They didn't know who, and this is some old research that had been done. They got the characteristics of certain people, mixed up their names, and people were more accepting of the ambition and the goals of the male as against the female. And whereas they had mixed them up. So already a lot of us are wired to think that ambition and drive in females is a bad thing.
Yeah.
But it's acceptable for males.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like it's like it's a built-in bias that is unconscious.
It's an unconscious bias. And sometimes that is something that's not very easy for women to accept. And you see them lashing out in frustration because some of them see what they do, they see the value that they add. But then they see that they are constantly bludgeoned with that bias. And then they see their male counterparts seemingly, coasting.
Yeah, yeah.
So in thinking about it from the other side, I'm sure there are some males that are like, this drive, I beg, it's too much of a headache. But they too have that bias, as in you should be driven.
Yeah.
You should go for it.
Yeah.
And then so maybe some of them just want to be laid back.
Yeah.
So it's for us to de-bias our thinking in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And when you see a successful person, the person should be weighed based on their expertise, based on their competence, and not colored by the gender.
Yeah.
But that's a long road, but it's a work in progress.
Mm-hmm. So when you say some of the what's the word you just used? Anyway, like the myths. So let's debunk some myths, right? Because there are myths, I believe, to women in the workplace and success. For example, you can hear that women cannot always choose to devote their time to their families instead of the workplace, right? You always feel like women have to choose their family first before their work. Men don't do that. Do you think it's a myth or a reality?
I think it's a reality. I think it's a reality. It's not it's not a myth, because this is actually some people's daily lived experience. So it's not a myth. It's a reality. And so when I said we need to, each and every one of us, we're not in a bubble. We're networked. We have families. We have people that, the families we're born into, the families we choose, as they say. I think there's a lot of room for us to, in our spaces, not, I won't say debunk the myth, but help to remove some of these realities.
Yeah.
So when you have a sister, when you have a cousin or someone that is in a dilemma, oh, I've been offered this, that's where networks and support should come in. How do we help you so that you don't have to make that choice? What do we need to do? If look at, I mean, even growing up, you'd see my mom always worked, but somehow she was still able to, manage it with the family.
Yeah.
It just boiled down to making certain choices for her that would enable her, give her deliverables at work, and at the same time have hands-on, one-on-one with us, her children, to make sure that she was in the full picture of what was going on with us at school and, all the things as we were growing up.
Yeah.
But she was also able to do that because she also had family support. And so now that we're in a world where everybody just seems to be going off in their own directions, sometimes we need to sit back and see, how are we supporting people in our tribe? And when I say tribe, I mean our network.
Yeah.
Not ethnic tribes.
Yeah.
How do we help our siblings, our friends, so that the weight of that choice is not something they have to deal with? They know they have someone who can help with this, someone who can help with that. If we consistently do this, then a lot of women will find that they can still seek advancement, but knowing that some of these other responsibilities are helped to be taken care of by people who they love and trust. So as you do this for others, others can do it for you as well. So I'm also very big on supporting those who are close to us. Because, there's a saying, it takes a village. It really does take a village. No one person can do it all themselves. And so that's one way that we can also help, so that women don't necessarily have to take it's all about the family, or it's all about my career. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. And as you were talking about the example with your mom, I remember this sentence that struck with me with this lady, Star Jones. And
yes,
I think she mentioned she was having a discussion on gender equity and things like that in the workplace. And there's this line she said that for women, our families are our reason and not our excuse. Right? Because the myth is that we use our family as our excuse.
Yeah.
But as women, we see ourselves as role models, and like we're building an example of success, of hard work, of we need to make sure that this entity that we have, which is the family, is put together, which is why it seems like we're prioritizing the family, which we do in essence. They are the reason why we push forward. We are not using it as an excuse. We just are our family. We are our community. We can't take it out of ourselves.
Yes.
Well,
and speaking further to what you said about Star Jones, just imagine the transgenerational building of an awareness that as a woman, you can strive for more.
Mm-hmm.
You can be ambitious. You can have goals for your community. You can have goals for whichever business entity or organization you're working for. By just seeing someone else of the older generation doing something similar. So you know it's not impossible. And also speaking to that book by Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, they spoke to women leaders across the world. And one resonant factor for each and every one of them, both the ones in Africa, women like former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, women from Latin America, the US, Europe, all of them were nurtured in environments where they were not limited in their mindsets, where they were raised to believe that they could do anything they wanted to do. And so if we're looking at this as a long game where we start growing into a place where the barriers to women's mindset in terms of what they can achieve can come to pass, it means we should be intentional about the mindsets that we're allowing the next generation of girls and young women to grow in. So, and that involves also exemplifying that idea. By working hard, showing that by working hard, building and developing yourself, you can achieve great things. There's nothing that beats an example. And once people see an example, then they believe that I can do it as well.
Okay. So let's talk about another statement as well, in keeping with myth or reality that I hear a lot about women in the workplace. It's that single women with no children are able to take more workload than married women with children. Is that a myth or a reality?
It's a reality because, like I said, with the other example, that's what some people have to deal with, but it's wrong. Because that single woman, you don't know what her responsibilities are. You don't know what for a married woman, for a mother, it's her spouse, it's her children. But for a single woman, you really don't know. And you cannot make the assumption that because she's single, she should take on the workload beyond that of her colleagues. No, she probably has other responsibilities and things she's engaged in. That will preclude her from doing that. So it's insulting, I think.
I agree with you, because so it's, and I find it a lot, maybe even in recruitment, where you see HR managers, especially male HR managers, picking women that seem like, okay, when are you getting married? Asking questions like that in interviews, or are you married? Or thinking that that is a factor that affects the productivity that you would bring forth to the job. And like you said, it's insulting. You don't know if that single person is even responsible for an extended family that spans beyond what a married woman has.
Exactly.
Right? So I don't need extra work just because I'm single and I'm going home and you think I don't have a husband or kids, right? So it really is something that is very prevalent, especially in the African societies. That, like, I've been in an interview panel where one of my colleagues was saying that the reason why we shouldn't recruit a certain lady was because she just got married. She might be having a baby next year. And that means in the next 11 months, you'll be asking for maternity
leave.
Like, I'm like, are you kidding me? Did you not just see her CV? She did perfectly in the interview. So all that doesn't matter. What bugs you is she just got married and she might have a baby and you might have to deal with maternity. So, I mean, yeah, it is the reality of what we deal with. And then you have, there's this judgment when it comes to single women. Maybe some women choose not to be married. Some of them choose not to have children. It's a choice and it's an okay choice, but you don't know what other things that they deal with, that makes
Exactly.
them feel like those choices are necessary for their life. So
Yeah.
it's all about not putting us in a box and making those assumptions that would affect what it seems like our performance levels would be. I mean, have you experienced any of sort of or worked with single person who, because when you talk to certain young ladies that are single, you hear their challenges. Some of them are even more than the married people's issues. Like,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Sometimes, of course, when I've been confronted with such situations and I threw the question back at the person and I'm like, based on you believe that, okay, because this person is single, maybe they should get more call duty responsibilities.
Yeah, in the hospital. Yeah.
How does that work? Do you know what the person is dealing with? And sometimes they actually step back because it's just something that unfortunately has been ingrained in some people as a way of thinking. So for some of them, they actually step back and be like, it's true. I never really thought of it that way. It was just this automatic assumption that because this person is not married, therefore they have more time to dedicate. But that's a very false assumption. And like you said, you never know what people are dealing with. You never know their responsibilities. And it's very limiting to think that one's responsibilities are simply children.
Yeah, tied to
Spouse.
whether they have a spouse or not.
And if they don't have those, then there's nothing else. In the world that we live in, it's a wrong way of thinking. And hopefully when we are in positions of leadership where we have decisions and to make and choices, we should hopefully not be the ones who are meeting out such assumptions in our workplaces.
Yeah, you actually just made a very valid point now. Lastly, it's not, so that it doesn't even seem like it's not just men. Women also have those type of assumptions on other women, right? I think these type of conversations that we're having are very necessary. We need to expand these conversations in our networks, in our tribe, like you say, so that even us as women kind of stay away from that thought process. I think it's part of our conditioning in certain communities, especially in Africa, where tradition, there's a very defined role for what a woman should be, or a married woman should be, or a single woman should be. And we carry that baggage into the workplace, even as well.
I would like to share an example. Early on in my career, I was taking permission from a boss to use my lunch hour to go and buy provisions and food stuff. I mean, I could have said I was going to check out, some official thing, but I said, well, this is what I'm going to do. And I don't see any reason why I should lie about it. And I said, this is what, because our lunch hours were basically spent in the office. You eat, do whatever. And I said, no, I'll forgo that lunch. I'll just go. This is what I need to do. I need to buy things for, then my last child was about 2. I said, I need to get things for my children. I need to get things for my household.
And it's your free time. It's your break time.
And it's my free time. And the response I got was, what kind of excuse is that? And I thought to myself, if I had said I was going to XYZ hospital, to chat with the head of the lab or something, it would sound like a use of my lunch break, right? But I chose to be honest. And so it's responses like that that make some women feel like their lived experience is inferior to someone else's lived experience. That is the reality of someone. That is the responsibility I had at the time. And so belittling it because it was going to purchase things for my household in the grand context of a work environment, I think is wrong. It was my free time to do with as fit. And I was actually taking permission.
You didn't even have to explain where you were going, but you chose to.
Exactly. And so I've taken that as a lesson in how not to lead.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's for me, it's not a regret. It's a good thing that I put it out there, because maybe part of me also wanted to get some feedback on the mindset of the leader at the time.
Yeah, so as you were saying this, it reminds me of a conversation I had in one of my last episodes within the last season. I don't know if you've checked it out. It's with Adaeze, and he's a like he does a lot of life coaching and things like that. And there's something he said that really resonates with me, and it's something that, because I do take his advice a lot on how I present myself in the workplace, about bringing your whole self to the work, be it bringing your head, your heart, and your hands, right? Because those are all the things you use to exist and to work.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm very intentional about not apologizing for my whole self at work. When you know me, you know I'm a mother, you know I'm a wife, and you know what I'm capable of doing at the job. I make sure that initially I'm intentional with you knowing that neither one of these things can be diminished, because this is who I am, you know? So if you don't respect that, it's on you, it's not on me. It means there's something in you as a leader that gets triggered by me having value for my family, for my child, because it doesn't take away anything from my performance. So I think we need to, like you said, as leaders, as sisters, as as women in general, be able to show other women that there's no shame in who you are as a woman. It's okay to let people know that this is a boundary. It's like I don't take calls. I'm like, everywhere I work, they know I don't take work calls at night. When I'm closed from work, I'm closed
You're
from work.
closed.
It doesn't affect anything. Even if there's an emergency, I don't think it will be different for you as a doctor, right? Because you have call times. But for me, being very corporate, there's a time for everything. I can choose to read the email at night, but I wouldn't respond to it. So it's boundaries we set, and as time goes on, the practice, it evolves, and then I allow also my teammates that are female to feel this, to see this, so that they don't make excuses for who they are at work. Because it's unfortunate, but men don't have to deal with these
No,
things.
and when you were talking about bringing your whole self to work, the effort that it takes to keep an aspect of yourself back is also something that leads to people feeling burnt out and completely ready to throw everything in. Even for careers and professions that they are passionate about, that they actually really love, but that effort to keep a side of themselves back, that constant feeling of unacceptance is a big contributory factor to the burnout and the frustrations that we're seeing in the workplace.
Absolutely, I agree. It has an underlying fear that you lose opportunities because of these things, and we need to educate our fellow menfolk, our brothers, that really these are not barriers to anything, right? They're not. They're just things that we have to deal with in life, and we have to remember at the end of it, we're human first, right? We're not machines that you can turn on and
turn off. And so another thing I tend to encourage women about is own the value that you add. When you know what you're bringing to the table, when you know what you can perform and what you can contribute to the larger picture of your organization's success, don't be shy about it. Don't be shy about it. Own your work. Because those biases are there. You can't take away from them. But what gives you the negotiating power is the fact that everyone recognizes the value that you add. And so even if it comes from a seemingly condescending point of view of, Adaeze now, and this her family matter. And by the end of the day, she would deliver on that report.
Yes.
No problem. But at least you've done what I want you to do, which is give me the necessary time to attend to my responsibilities while not shirking my job responsibilities.
Yeah.
So even if you're going to put it in that condescending manner, no problem. Very soon you won't be sounding condescending anymore. It doesn't diminish
your value.
Yeah. It doesn't diminish my value. And it is a recognition of my value.
Yeah.
And that's why they'll say, oh, humans are smart. Humans are very smart. They'll say, okay, Dr. Nuratu, if we frustrate her, she's not going to bring that value to the table. So let's just give it to her as if it's a privilege we're bestowing. They know very well it's not a privilege, but it just makes it feel better to them.
Exactly.
About permitting you to do what you want to do.
And there's power in that, right? Because it is, if you as a person know that them doing this is not a reflection of you, it's a power you own, because it's all on them. It's their own insecurity.
It's their own insecurity. Exactly. It's their own insecurity. And at the back of their minds, they do know that there is the possibility of you taking that value somewhere else.
Yeah.
I know that given the challenges with employment opportunities in our own Nigerian context, sometimes that fear, with superiors saying to you, people would kill for your job. Your job could be snapped up in a minute. Yes, but at the same time, every day people change roles. So, and it's in the same ecosystem. So a big part of it is acknowledging the work that you do, document what you do, portray it where necessary, build your self-esteem, build your confidence, and communicate it. People will come to recognize. And so when you do that, it limits the extent to which they will push certain gender stereotypes your way. They will do it regardless of how accomplished or how valuable you are, but it still reduces it to a great extent. They can't push you too far if you're seen to be valuable to the organization.
What I'm taking away from what you just said is the power really is on you as a female or as a male, whoever. The power of confidence, of ownership is all on you. The world is going to be the way the world is, right? But you need to know the limits to how those things can affect you. And that limit is based on your own self-awareness of who you are and your capacity to deliver on what you know. So yeah, very good point.